All right, welcome everybody to episode 22 of the Content Lab podcast. Today we have the second CrossFit Games episode, I guess. So we're gonna be doing a little debrief. We have a lot of content creators on the screen right now. We're live on YouTube, and I'm just gonna go around and say everybody's name. We have Eric Castaños, we have PC and the Pups, Patrick Clark, we have Ginnie Coleman Photography, Carly Johnson, also known as Carly Creative, Michael is Hustle, Michael Dalton, Josi Somakian, Life of Josi, and Shots by Sroka, Alex Sroka. Thanks everybody for joining. Before we get started, I wanted to thank everybody that approached me at the games and told me that they've been listening to the podcast and they've been learning and a lot of cool things. So I really appreciate everybody that did that. Thanks everybody that's right now on the screen for joining during the debrief. I wanted to start.
Thank you for having us. I'm still giggling.
I wanted to start by I want every one of you to tell like your role at the games. So, for example, Eric, like you can tell that who you work for and what's your like main job. That way, people that don't know about CrossFit or that are not in the industry can like know more about you. So let's start with Eric.
Yeah. So this year at the CrossFit Games, I was with HWPO training, shooting Matt. I was shooting Matt behind the scenes. We had a bunch of like community workouts, and then I shot Mal O'Brien, Jason Hopper, Thuri Helga daughter, and that was pretty much it. So that was who I had this year.
Perfect. Next one, Patrick Clark.
Yeah, I was shooting for Morning Chalk Up. So basically, Morning Chalk, we're shooting everybody, especially individuals and teams. So I think unlike some other content creators who are specifically shooting a particular person or brand or a group of athletes, our job was to cover everyone, including the adaptives. So I spent the first couple of days shooting a lot of adaptives, age groups, and team division, and then transitioned to shooting a lot of the individuals and team competition, as well as helping along Lauren Khalil with our podcast, our daily podcast at night on our YouTube channel, amongst other things.
All right, let's go with a fan favorite.
Let's go.
Yeah, so I did the photo and social media, and then I also helped manage and work alongside Cole McSwain, our videographer, for Proven Fitness. But my bosses are Tia and Shane, so that's who I work for.
Awesome. We're gonna go with Josi.
Yeah, so I was working with Team Richie, the Hustle Made crew. Was helping them out on the vlog with Sean Ellison. Then I was working with Go Out, so a big bunch of athletes there alongside Brandon. And then I was doing the personal social media for a bunch of athletes, including Gabby and Lazar Dukic.
Awesome. Michael?
I had muted myself because I was burping in my microphone. I helped run the digital team, digital video for CrossFit Games Social. Similar to Patrick, all divisions, all age groups, just trying to make sure that the full experience of the CrossFit Games made it onto social media.
Ginnie Coleman.
Hi, I'm Ginnie Coleman. I work for the CrossFit Games media team, photography. My specific role has been for the last 2 years dealing with partnership, which is really kind of fun and insightful, seeing how partnerships and branding is trying to expand and help create more of a professional level for CrossFit. And I love it. I love what I get to do.
Beautiful. And then we have Alex Sroka.
Let's see. I was doing some stuff for Podium, X Endurance, Ramwad as a group with some others, and the Wildlife. So there's a lot of different athletes, and I'll probably never do that again.
That was the whole floor, dude.
And we have Torin joining us right on the spot. So Torin, we're going around saying our main task for the game. So I guess, oh wait, wrong screen. Hey, it's you now. There you go.
Heyo. Main tasks. I was working with HRP Productions and X2 Productions, which are both working for CrossFit, and we were covering the games for the documentary as well as Miles Madison.
Beautiful. All right, and I guess it's me next. I was just doing photography for the Mayhem crew. So everybody that it's a Mayhem athlete, we had a bunch of masters teams, individuals. So yeah, just doing photography and just helping as much as I can with social media, part of it. All right, so let's start. I wanted to get first somebody that hasn't been at the games before, like Alex. What was your experience like at the games, being on the whole experience for the first time?
Yeah, I think that you quickly learn that it's pretty overwhelming when you're covering multiple athletes. You're figuring out a lot, so you're figuring out where you need to be, which heats your athletes are in. You're trying to, keep in the back of your head the deliverables that you need to get over to the athletes or to the brands. And I think you kind of, at least for me, I feel like I can get a little bit easily overwhelmed because things happen and so fast. There's no redos, right? There's no makeups. It's so much different than we've talked about before, shooting in a gym where you can tell people to, go do another rep or something like that. And specifically for some of the style stuff that I do, which requires not just snapping one photo, but perhaps doing a burst of 100 plus or close to 200 in a row. Like, you really have to, know where you're going to be. Otherwise you're probably going to miss it. And like I said, there's no redo. So learning experience for me was definitely involved with way too much. I would love to just be focused on one athlete or, two athletes, maybe a female and male, have a little bit more time, and just so that your quality doesn't suffer as a result of taking on too much. But continually impressed by, everybody that's on the screen now and others who literally, cover a lot of different athletes and still put out really high quality content. So definitely a learning experience for me.
Awesome. And I guess Torin is the one with the most experience. Maybe Michael as well. You guys can give me your feedback about just this year's games and how it's been different for the from the rest, and how everything's been evolving in the content creation.
Can I add a follow-up question for Sroka? Is it tough doing your job being the most jacked person in the media?
That's the only reason I actually rented the 400, was just so that I could get a little pump in carrying it around.
Yeah,
I knew I wasn't going to be able to work out.
You need to get those veins out.
But I'd probably say the biggest challenge.
Damn, boy.
The biggest challenge is probably dealing with Carlos and his unstoppable comments about it, for sure. But I still love him.
Yep.
That's so distracting. Just let me take my pictures, Carlos.
Yeah.
Let me do my job. Yeah. Torin, how long have you been doing it? The games?
My first games was 2013.
Yeah, me too.
Also, we have the same amount of experience here.
Although I was at 2012 as a fan though, so.
Oh, I was not. Ooh. I was in Mexico shooting a wedding in 2012 games.
All right, so what do you guys think about this year's games compared to the rest, and how the whole evolution of CrossFit Media has been happening?
Go ahead, Dalton.
Before I answer this question, are all of our screens laid out the same way? So if I look up, is that Torin? Is that everybody else's screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
cool.
see.
I just kind of wanted to. Okay. I just kind of wanted the Brady Bunch and be able to all look at each other while we're talking. No, man, I thought the games were great this year. I don't want to have my compliment of this year feel like it's disparaging in any way any past year, but I had a great time, and I enjoyed the early day shakeups. I enjoyed wondering who's gonna win for the first couple days, and then I also enjoyed as a fan of the sport, I enjoyed the last couple of days feeling they were familiar, our previous, that's as a fan, not as a employee, I'm not an employee of anybody, not as a not as someone who is working there, but just as somebody who enjoys watching. I was shit, who's gonna win? And then our regular people are gonna win, and that makes me feel safe. So like, man, I had a great time. I loved it. I start to finish, had a fantastic time.
I'm going to say that I feel like I said this in our morning meeting on the last day that, you know, for a couple of years, there seemed to be a disconnect in the CrossFit community with a lot of the issues that happened and changes. And this CrossFit Games, I felt a renewed excitement and energy from the CrossFit community as a whole. It just felt different. I loved seeing so many new people there. I can't tell you how many people I talked to that it was their first time at the CrossFit Games and being part of the event. And so I just loved seeing the hope for the future for CrossFit, not only as a fitness modality, but also as a sport. So that's what was exciting to me.
I have a quick question for Michael Torin, probably. That recap video at the end of the whole, you know, of the 2022 CrossFit Games. I'm probably, obviously they're working on that throughout the week as footage gets dumped in. Is there a process behind the scenes of, as you know, whoever's editing that, like to say, hey, I need a little bit more of this, I need more of that, whether it's different age group divisions or adaptive things of that nature? And how does that kind of collectively come together? Are people sort of assigned different types of shots? Because I don't know about anybody else, but when that was being played on the floor in the arena there, I was like, this is super cool. I've watched that probably 1,000 times since it was posted on YouTube.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, I'm actually going to start paying you per view because that's very helpful for I'll give you 1 penny per time you watch it in its entirety.
All right.
Yeah, BRB. I got to make a quick couple cents. No, this year, let me think through your question. We had someone cover. So we had a team of like I think 7 shooters. We had someone at every event, every division. That's like all of the age groups, all of the adaptives. And we might have like missed little chunks of some of the age groupers here and there, but like we were able to cover like some aspect of every event for every division. Earlier in the week, it starts to look like we're just making sure that our best footage gets labeled and given to our editor, Nick. He's from Austin, Texas. And then as the week goes on, it starts to be like singular, like we're handing over singular shots from each event. And then like some of those things are being changed the night of, you know, like they're like the version that played in the house, if you recall, is slightly different than the version that is on YouTube. So we spent about like 7 or 8 more hours that night, like tweaking it, just to make sure that like what we felt were the best shots made it in the thing. And honestly, like Nick is really good with sound and sound design. And some of that would be like, he would say, hey, like I have this moment in the song that I need something that feels like this. Who has that? And then we would kind of as a unit talk through who had what and what might fit well. But yeah, I mean, mostly it's just making sure that like everyone who's shooting gets their best ofs back to Nick. And then Nick can, you know, make his magic. I requested that when he was credited on the YouTube page there, that it said like the great and powerful Nick Grant. But the powers that be decided that Nick Grant would suffice. And but no, he did an amazing job. The team as a whole did a fantastic job.
Yeah, it's so cool, dude.
Yeah, thanks, dude.
Yeah, I think the best shot, or my favorite one, was the one, the underwater guy jumping. It's kind of like you see him like above the water, and then he jumps straight to the water.
Dude. That
we saw you with that wetsuit on, and I was like, "Oh shit, it's going down."
Him and Meg.
Yeah, but I want to hear
freezing.
Torin's like just whole experience. Somebody also that's been around for a while.
It was a great games. It's always like stressful. It's always really, really stressful. And there's a lot of low points and there's high points, but then at the end, you always feel really good about it. I think one of the hardest things, and Dalton, you might have more, like, people probably think that we know what's going on in terms of workouts, and we really don't. So we have to react pretty much in real time to the workouts being announced, and then figure out where we're going to place cameras and how we're going to cover it. And then sometimes I show up and I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, wait, what's the workout? I'm like, where are they going? Where are they finishing? Because my camera is so heavy, it's like usually it's at the finish line, but sometimes if it's at the finish line, it's no good for the rest of the workout. So I'll want to put it somewhere in the middle, and then at a certain moment, I'll be like, I probably should move to the finish line now. At the Capitol, I was running back and forth between the jerry bags and the finish line with my camera just the entire time being like, please don't trip and fall. Please don't trip and fall. But otherwise, I mean, other than that, it's great. I think our team came together really well. I think we crushed the coverage of the games. We also, for Miles to Madison, have to turn around 4 episodes, I think, in like 3 weeks. So we also had an edit crew and a producer and other editors going through all the footage that was coming in, pulling selects, but then also saying like, hey, can we get this? Can we get that? Can we get a soundbite from so-and-so? Hey, can we try and set up, the day before the bike event, we were able to set up something with Ricky, where we went to his hotel and hung out with him, and then he went and got a haircut, a little behind the scenes type stuff. And once the event gets going, it's hard to set that stuff up because nobody wants to do anything outside of compete. But anytime we can get that offsite stuff, it's that's like where the real gold is, because everyone at the competition is pretty much shooting the same stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, what else can we get outside of the competition? And then the behind the scenes is where we get a lot of good stuff with the coaches and the athletes warming up. You get them before, you get them after, especially with new events that are getting announced and trying to capture them, like trying to figure stuff out on the fly. All those little moments that people don't get to see because they're not down there. But yeah, that was a good games. Felt really good about it. I have if we're going to get to any like, what was like your craziest moment of the games? Like I have a pretty good, eventually. Yeah, I have a good story.
I think I already know Michael's.
This question is for Josi and Carly. So what do you guys think was the hardest, most difficult event to shoot, since there were so many new elements and venues this year? Let's start with Mr. Josi Somakian.
Ooh, the hardest to shoot. I think the Capitol was pretty hard to shoot. I mean, we guys were all on the same train there like an hour before everyone started, and just trying to figure out, okay, what's the right finish line spot to shoot. So that was definitely hard to shoot, especially if you missed the shot that you wanted to get. So yeah, definitely the Capitol shot by far.
Carly? You're the fan favorite. We need you to talk a little more.
Like it was easy. Everything
out of the 30 people are listening, 28 are here for you. So
no. I think I'll take this in a little bit different way than just like shooting it. But I think like personally the hardest event for me to shoot was just the last event. And it wasn't because of access or where I was placed or anything. It was just because I think when Tia entered the floor, like I could see that she had been crying. And so like I knew at that moment that it was going to be like an emotional event to shoot. And I didn't struggle with that event because of how she did or like that it was hard to, I don't know, get my shots. It was just the symbolism of like a wrap up for what was there. And yeah, I think like I was crying the whole event, so I was scared as shit that I was shaky and like all my shots were gonna be fucked up. But other than that, yeah, like that was definitely the hardest one for me, I think. So.
How did they turn out? The shots that you were crying during? I bet they're fucking great. I bet they're fucking great.
They were good. There were some shots that I screwed up because I was a little too in the moment instead of doing my job. But yeah,
I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second.
That just tells you how much like emotionally invested we get into the athletes that we're covering, and even more if it's people like Eric and Carly that are with those athletes all year round. I mean, I can only imagine like when I see Paige and Bailey and Bridge, and it's like my team, and I'm like, I want to scream, but I can't because I'm taking photos, and I feel like so emotionally invested. I want them to do good. When I see them like having a tough time, I feel like I have a tough time, right? It's just like you feel like you're a part of the team, but I can only imagine if it's like Carly, for example, like those people are like her family, right? Like she's day in, day out with them all day. Same with Eric. I mean, I saw when Mal was announced, second place, Eric was like super stoked. Then you see Matt crying too. It's just a completely different ballgame when you are that invested into the athletes. We have. Oh wait. That's Bennett.
Oh,
Yes.
Benny Loop.
Carly. Carly, what's that like? What was that like as a whole this year? Like I've always wondered what it's like to be like I've never had a games where I was attached to one group of athletes for the entire games. And what's that like emotionally? Like I know that I've covered I've consistently covered some groups of people at the games, but never like I've never stayed where they're staying. I'm never going back to like their house with them every night. Are you affected by their emotions at the end of every day? Like, are you riding the highs with them and the lows? And then like, does that affect how you're doing your job the next day, like for good or for bad?
Oh, 100%. Like if I were to sum up what the games were like for me, is an emotional roller coaster for sure. I think for me, like, would it be easier for me to do my job if I wasn't as emotionally connected? Yeah. But I wouldn't choose that for the world, because I think for me, seeing like an athlete like Brooke and Tia go from the off season of like Tia going, trying to compete at the Olympics, and Brooke barely being able to lift her arm, to the Open, seeing that through quarterfinals, traveling to Australia with them, seeing her compete in front of her family, her crowd, to the games, and then knowing that that's like the last moment I'll be shooting it, is just like, yeah, like it like, to me, like shooting the games isn't like shooting anything else, I guess, because I always think about like, how am I supposed to deliver a feeling to other people? Like, how am I supposed to tell the story of like these athletes that dedicate their entire lives to this sport if I can't feel it, right? Like if I don't know the athlete, I can't expect anyone else to start to know that athlete either. And so I think this year was crazy because no one could have predicted for Brooke that she would make it back and be 5th in the world, and no one could predict that Tia would be, sitting 8th on the first day. Like, so I think it just goes to show that like our team is so small. And so we really feel when an athlete is struggling, we really feel the moments that they're doing really well. And yeah, the days, like the times of when like when Tia and Brooke got cut during that workout, like I remember Eric looked at me and was like, "You look so pissed." And I was like, "Yeah, I fucking am," because like I feel it with them, like I'm not just sitting there taking a photo, not connected. Like I'm very connected to their story. And like, I think when you see them struggle and like, you see the pain that they put themselves in and the amount of like sacrifice that they give every single day, and then you see something either taken away or given to them, like it changes the game for what you do. And it's changed my game 100%. So
it'd be easier, but you don't know if it would, it wouldn't be better.
Yeah.
Like
And yeah. Like I think it would be easier to just show up and do the work. Like if I just showed up and took photos, like I can do that, it's like if you were to go do like a family session, like if you don't know the family, you just take the photos and have like carry on with your day. Yeah, but like for something that I see them more than I see my own family and my own friends. So like, yeah, it would be easier, but I wouldn't want it, you know?
Hell yeah.
Bennett, how do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about that too? Because you're another one that's involved with these athletes all day, right? Like you're hanging out with them all the time.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way that Carly feels. I mean, I can identify with that. I mean, when I first came here, I didn't have an emotional attachment to the athletes. And the first time I went through the CrossFit Games, you know, I was just kind of shooting on the field, and it was kind of just, you know, taking it heat by heat. And I didn't really have any emotional connection to the athletes. But now that I've been here a year, kind of like Carly was saying, like you see them day in, day out, you kind of develop a relationship with them. And so it was the same kind of deal. Like I'd be on the sidelines. Like at one point I was told like not to cheer because I was like right next to Victoria, and she was like literally like 3 feet away from me, and I was like cheering for her, and they were like, "Hey, you can't be cheering." And I was like, "Damn, this is someone that I see day in and day out, like that I actually emotionally invest time in." I wouldn't say it's harder. I definitely feel like Carly was saying, I definitely feel the emotions as the week goes on. You know, your athletes aren't doing as well. And so, you know, I would find myself very nervous before certain events. I would find myself very like almost apprehensive for them. And then obviously as some of them climbed back up the leaderboard, I would find myself, you know, overjoyed just alongside them. In one sense though, it makes my job more enjoyable because it's one thing if you're just documenting like super badass athletes, like that's cool in and of itself, but it's another thing. I almost would rather have a mediocre athlete in the middle of the pack that I haven't emotionally invested time in than, you know, someone that I don't have any emotional connection to and just kind of documenting their journey. So yeah, I definitely feel the emotion throughout the weekend, and that almost made it more special. Even if some of our athletes didn't perform the way they wanted to or the way we expected them to, I definitely enjoyed the weekend more because of that.
Yeah. I'm curious about Torin, because Torin, you also, I mean, in some way you're documenting their journey all year, right? Like you're doing the miles to Madison, so you have to travel to, I know you travel to Vermont, you travel to Cookeville, so you're documenting their whole season. Like how's that emotional attachment to you? The athletes?
So I definitely root for people, the people that I work with, but I feel like I do a pretty good job of not crossing the line between being a professional and then, you know, I feel like we're all friendly and courteous and stuff, but I try not to, you know, I don't think I'm around them enough to feel the same way. And I also make an effort not to do that because in the past working for sports teams where I have gotten really emotionally connected to the team, and when they do well, it's like an incredible high. And then when they don't do well, it's awful. And I really don't like feeling that way. That roller coaster, the ups and downs. And I can only imagine like how Carly was feeling when Tia was struggling initially. Like it was, you know, it was like, well, shit, like this isn't going according to plan. And you could tell Tia wasn't happy. And yeah, it's like for me to do my job and do it well, like I really need to be focused, and I can't be like rooting for people or be emotionally manipulated in that way. You know what I mean? Like I just don't like the way it feels. So I definitely root for people. I want everyone to do well, but I'm not on that level. And I think it would be different if I was with someone, you know, 24/7 throughout the year. But I think doing it the way that I do it, it's like I pop in and out of people's lives, and it's great when I'm there. But then when I'm gone, you know, there's not much communication outside of that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And just letting everybody know that if you need to go at some point, that's fine. You don't have to stay until the end of the stream. I know Sroka is trying to, he'll be back in a minute. Let's see. Somebody's
he had to go
to
get a quick pump in. He was, yeah. That's what he texted me. He was like, well, feels small. BRB.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a question for the group, especially Michael and Torin. So originally Thursday was supposed to be kind of an off day, but when that schedule changed with the storm and everything, I knew it threw us like Morning Chalk up in for a loop because we had 4 photographers there, myself, Ava Kitsky, Enrique, and Dave Lipson from the Crispy Dudes. So we had assignments, but when they threw that individual team in there, it kind of threw our schedule out of whack, and we're busy catching up. But how did that affect everyone else too? I mean, especially like someone like Carly, Eric, that was kind of an off day where the athletes are going to rest. I'm pretty sure you guys probably had things scheduled, maybe like a day in the life, a rest day or something like that. But how did that affect you guys?
Torin, you go first.
Yeah, it just shifted our plans. Thursday was a day that we were going to connect with athletes outside of the event, and we just ended up not doing that. Not the end of the world, but I was more concerned about my camera and the rain. So we didn't have rain gear, so we were putting trash bags on our cameras. But yeah, no, the one thing with the games is, much like the athletes, you got to be flexible and you got to adapt to change, and things are going to change. The unknown and unknowable aspect of the game applies to us as well, to a certain degree. And you just got to be willing to roll with it,
Yeah, I think that's my same note, is that like we had a plan and then we had to change it. But like thankfully all of our people were in town, like our team was ready to party. And if anything, like the rain delay for the previous day was like kind of nice, because I think we were like really fucking geared up and everybody was like, here we go, like we're gonna ride this thing into the ground till 9 o'clock tonight. And then like having this unplanned midday break, we were like, okay, let's take a step back, let's assess, let's find out how this is all gonna play into the rest of the week. But no, like it would have been a very welcome like half day kind of to have half our team on and half our team off. But like everybody jumped right in and it was seamless. So it like to Torin's point, like showing up prepared for the unknown and unknowable as much as the athletes are is, I think, a large part of covering the thing. But also welcome, ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the legend, Heber Cannon.
Woohoo, let's go.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah.
In Heber fashion, dude, no shirt.
Yeah. He's running late because he had his. There it is.
Just got on my ice bath. I'm joining you guys, and I'm also live streaming my live premiere of my latest episode that we just.
Yeah, it premiered at 10, right?
He's legally required. He's legally required to address all those things at the beginning of the stream.
Heber, I'm glad you're here. I wanted to ask you something because obviously we don't know what's gonna happen to Rich Froning, if this is it, right? Completely, if he's gonna come back as Masters. I think he did say that he's completely done with the teams aspect of it. And you were somebody that, like Torin and Michael, you've been around for a while. I think you might have been around for longer than them when it comes to CrossFit Media. And you also produced the film The Fittest Man in History, which is the first film that got out there for Rich Froning, right? I think at that point he might have won maybe 2 or 3 championships. Now he's at 10. So I wanted to know your perspective about the whole history of him, his legacy, you filming that, and now how like everything has gone to the point that he's 10 championships deep.
Yeah, this is a wild games. This is my 14th time attending the CrossFit Games. So I've been there for every one of Rich's career, and man, that guy has done so much for the sport and grown it in such a cool way. And I don't know if I don't think that guy can just walk away. So I'd love to see him come back to the Masters, maybe give himself like a little break. But he's been a part of. Like, you look at athletes that competed back in the day, like even in the movie I made 2014, you had like Jason Khalifa pushing him for second, and Matt Fraser's rookie year back then. Matt could still push these athletes, but like Josh Bridges is pushing him on the push-pull. If you dropped Josh Bridges or Jason Khalifa into the final heat of the games this weekend, they would get their world rocked. But if you drop Rich Froning in there, he's a contender still, like that's absolutely bonkers for someone that long in the sport to continue to push their body and be at the top level. So I don't know if I've answered the question, but I'm continually inspired and impressed with what Rich has done. And also, you guys should know that when I shot a lot of that footage you just saw, Michael Dalton was there hand in hand with me, shooting a lot of that. It was a good time. I got to know Michael really on my first or second trip out to Cookville, and have enjoyed working with him over the last decade as well.
I did a lot of crying off camera, mostly. That's what I did.
Yeah.
That was my role.
In the shower, good acoustics there.
But that scene where they're teaching Rich how to change a diaper is still one of my favorite. Like, it's like a new status thing. It's like, okay, there's gonna be poop everywhere.
Well, what you're saying is true. I was talking to Rory one of the days, and I think it was to Bennett or Scott, and he was talking about going to the Invitational in Madrid, which the Invitational used to be like the US against Australia, against Europe. Right, and they have their athletes, and then Rory's like, yeah, all those, old athletes like Kalipa, and it kind of like talking about like, the OGs, the past. And then he says, well, Rich was there, and then we were like, yeah, isn't it mind blowing that he's still like at a high level competing? He's like, yeah, it's crazy to think that, because you think about all those athletes that are like, super OG, that they're like retired, they're doing their thing. And yeah, I mean, he's still at a high level, so it's pretty impressive to see that, I don't know, 14. Yeah. Well, he started in 10, so 12 to 13 years competing at the games. Crazy. Okay, so Jonathan Ortega asked, Carlos, if Rich is done, are you guys thinking of doing like a recap of his champion? Well, that's a question for Bennett. Bennett, are you listening?
Say that again.
They have
we're kind of things are crazy still over here.
They have a question for you on the screen.
I have my phone set up on a can of liquid death on my desktop so that I can see you guys.
Just rolling the dice. He's got an open water can on his computer.
Because I have my editing screen up, so yeah, it's a kind of a shit show. What was the question?
Can you see the question on the screen?
Carlos, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see.
All right, Scott, answer that question. If Rich is done, are you guys thinking of doing like a recap of his 1,000 championships?
Next question.
Yeah. Scott comes in with the dad angle.
Oh, by the way, we have a games athlete on the screen too.
Fittest content creator, right there.
Fittest content creator,
yeah.
Ben.
Yeah. Well, not bad.
Ben competed at the CrossFit Games last week, and his ass was working out yesterday. So I just want all that to sink in for all of you.
Ben, tell us your experience, a little summary of your experience as for first time as a games athlete and not somebody shooting video.
It gives you an interesting insight to like how the athletes are feeling and like what they're going through the week. And this is gonna like sound kind of bad, but like before I was on that side, I was always like, man, these guys are on vacation for the week. Like they're showing up, they're getting to work out, and like they're living their best life. They're sleeping 10 hours a night, eating when they want. But dude, when you're on that side, I mean, you're stressed to the gills. I mean, you are like, I was so stressed. Like, this is not exaggeration. It was hard for me to eat. One day I took a like elk meatballs and rice, and I only ate one meatball because I was so stressed the entire time. And I mean, other than that, like, it is true. Like, you do get to sleep as much as you want. You can eat as much as you want, but dude, with what you're going through on that side, like, you're so consumed by it. I mean, like, my family went, and I was like the worst dad of the week because I like spent 30 minutes with my daughter every night. Like, it was just, I was having nightmares like of the CrossFit Games. Like, I was showing up without my uniform. I was like, I was like showing up late to workouts in my dreams. It was just, there's so much stress. It's hard to really, it was healthy to be on that side. I'll say that.
Being without him was very hard on us. I will say that.
Yeah, that's another thing. I felt so bad because, you know, like from the content side, what like the content creators are going through. I mean, like these guys are staying until 3-4 in the morning. trying to like edit and get out content, and then they wake up, you know, earlier than the athletes do, so they can be there before the athletes. And it's like I would walk in, like Bennett would be in the hallway with his camera, like, you know, bags under his eyes, like I know he's like struggling for life. And like, so I felt bad from that perspective too, because I was like, man, these guys are like really hurting right now. But and like I said, but you're also like, you're so consumed by what you're doing on the competitive side. I'm just, it's only like a thought. I'm like, that sucks for him. Gotta go.
Also logistically, like having Ben was so helpful last year. Like, I don't know if y'all saw my setup, but like I had this like big ass camera with this big ass lens on an easy rig. And normally Ben, like in between events, he'd be able to like catch up with athletes. He'd have like a little vlogging camera and he could go run them down between events and catch them on the finish line. But we didn't have Ben, so it was just me. And so I had this big ass setup. Unfortunately, like my focal length went out to 25 millimeters. So like I was kind of able to vlog a little bit, but like after an event would end, a new one would start in like 10 minutes or like immediately after. So that was really hard logistically. So we'd be scrambling at the end of the day. I'd try to track down athletes as they were leaving exhibition hall. And sometimes we'd miss them. Sometimes we wouldn't. And then just like trying to get over there with like 30 pounds of camera was a bear in and of itself. But definitely a different year, and we're excited to have Ben back for sure.
Oh, we have a question for Ginnie and Carly. What are your thoughts on being a female in the media field? Do you feel outnumbered? Is it changing? Do you love it?
Well, I can say that from a CrossFit Games perspective and working also in the professional sports space, collegiate and other avenues, CrossFit, the CrossFit Games media team has really set the standard for having women on a media team. I think Michael can attest to that there has been significantly more women on the media team the last 2 years than there ever has been. You don't see that in other spaces. I can tell you that I am significantly outnumbered on a collegiate football sideline. I'm significantly outnumbered at a baseball game. I feel like CrossFit is the place where it's allowing women a better opportunity to create. That's not necessarily so in those other spaces. I hope to see the change. I definitely call it out every single week. I would love to see more women creatives in the field. But I do think that CrossFit Games, Emily O'Hearn especially, has set the standard in allowing women to create and be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And so from my perspective, we still have a lot more work to do, with the exception of the CrossFit space.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I think still, like, when you go into like the big mass media room, there's still significantly more men than women. But I will say, like, there's nothing better than seeing like Mariah Moore out there leading a team and Emily out there leading a team. And I think like both perspectives are really cool to have. I think the fact that like I work for a very dominant female has given me a lot of really cool perspective of what to do in the space. I work for somebody that's very well respected and that demands what she wants. And that's something that like I've realized that I can do as well. But also like I bring in a unique perspective. Like I played football in high school. So like
awesome.
I've been used to like being the only girl in a lot of spaces and like realizing what that feels like and how I want to communicate with people about that. And so that kind of set me up for like a weird place because like I'm not intimidated by being one of men. Like I'm not intimidated by that, but like it warms my heart to see other like women around that are out there telling stories, because I think there's a space for everyone, you know, regardless of what gender you are. So
also, you don't want to mess with Carly.
Let's go.
What position did you play? Was it a mixed gender team?
Yeah, I have so many questions about
that. Right. We can't just casually move past this. Right.
I played football and then just leave it alone.
Right.
She was a wide receiver.
I played soccer my whole life, but then I got to be a junior in high school and my soccer team was really catty and I was kind of over that. So I tried out to be the kicker of the the varsity team and I made it. But the funny thing is they like, I always wanted to do more. Like I was pissed that like I could only go out there for like a small time. Yeah, like so like I went in for defensive end all the time, and I sacked the quarterback one time, and my team went nuts.
Michael's face.
Yeah.
She's like, I played
yeah.
soccer
Can you
and they were
imagine
all
being that
catty, so I
quarterback?
wanted to slam bitches into the floor.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. That's so cool.
That's
We're
awesome.
definitely seeing that more in the high school space. There were a couple women playing high school football last year. Iowa is one of the, we're starting to see more women's wrestling at the high school level and collegiate level. Iowa, obviously, of course, brought in a women's wrestling program this year. So you're seeing a lot more sports that have not necessarily been for women become women accessible, which is really great to see. I don't think it's ever an issue of being intimidated. I just think that there does need to be a realization that women can create in a man's sport. And that's where it gets really frustrating. Like I said, when you work in a collegiate football program, or you're working even in, a AAA baseball, or, working for a Major League Baseball club, you do feel as if, you do get talked down to. I mean, I kid you not, 2 weeks ago, I had a man at a Cubs game tell me it must really suck carrying the photo gear for the photographer. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I've had that. And Drake relays, the day of the Olympic runners, I had a guy tell me, do you know how to use all that gear? So I can guarantee you, I can guarantee, but the point is that you would never speak that way to a man photographer. So there still is that disconnect in every other space, but I've never felt that in the CrossFit game space. And again, that goes to people like Emily and Jonathan, who have such supreme confidence in you as a creator, whether you're a man or a woman, but especially as a woman, that you can go and do your job and not ever feel intimidated in that room. I don't know. I am really grateful for this space that allows you to create as you are and give some insight from a female perspective that sometimes you don't see from a male perspective, but seeing the man's perspective that you sometimes don't get from a female perspective.
Well, Ginnie and Carly, I don't know if you know this, but or if you got a chance to meet Ava. She's the 17-year-old that shoots and writes for the Morning Chalk Up, but she looks up to both of you. So you guys are doing the right thing, and
I love it. You guys are probably mad at me because I told her, you make sure you ask them to get paid for your work.
No, hey.
Patrick.
It's fine. Yeah.
I was going to ask you.
She looks up to you guys regarding that. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for being great role models for the next generation of photographers, not just as well as women. So it's great.
Cool.
So Patrick, I was going to ask you.
Good luck to her.
You've worked in the field for a while too, as a journalist, right? Like you used to work for ESPN. How's that topic, that industry like evolving? And your perspective, obviously, since you've been around for so long.
Yeah, when I came into the space, like I said, I have a background in collegiate sports and professional sports. And when I found CrossFit, I was actually burnt out on sports in general. So I started doing CrossFit, and then I started judging as a CrossFitter. And but then I still had that ache. I opened up I had my own photography company. I got back into shooting collegiate sports, some professional sports. And then I just felt like I needed to do more in the space and bring some of my expertise from, the collegiate and professional field, whether it be content creation or marketing or whatever. So, that's how I ended up at the Morning Chalk Up. I actually started off volunteering as a photographer at the 2019 games with them. And then, they did, Justin LaFranco found out that I worked at ESPN and production, found out that I had a writing background, a journalism background, and knew how to write sports. So he brought me on as a writer, and then, and then it's kind of expanded since then, where we're doing more stuff on YouTube. We're just, a lot of big things are planned for the Morning Chalk Up, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And I think the reason why I'm a part of it is because I have that background. So if you have that background in something else, another, whether it be a sport or another industry, you should always tap into that, and hopefully you can bring that into the sport that you're. I'm just reading these comments. But hopefully you can bring some of your skills into the CrossFit space, because the CrossFit space in terms of sport is so in its infancy and still learning, and not just from the sport itself, but also from the content side and how we market it. And I think this is a great start by doing something like this, getting so many creators involved from various backgrounds.
Awesome. Before we answer if Josi's single, there's a question here. It says, Carlos, what is something a content creator needs assistance with so you can stay focused on what you love to do? Editing, assets, scheduling, uploading. I think I'm going to try to answer it, but that's more of a question for somebody like Heber or Torin, or people that have been on the, in the field for a lot longer than me. I think at the beginning of when I started doing this full time, I could try to do everything, just grind everything, do all my scheduling or all my editing, everything. I think you can grind it out as much as you can until it reached a point that I felt like I needed to expand and kind of just grow my team. And that's when I started seeing that I started feeling like a little burnout, a little tired, and that's when I started outsourcing the editing, finding some people to shoot stuff for me. But that, I think at the beginning, once you get started, I think you can grind everything by yourself. You kind of learn how to manage your time and just kind of be like a one-man band the whole time. How about Heber and Torin? What do you think about that question? Oh, I guess I didn't pin it right there.
I think I'm pretty similar, where for the first few years, even for CrossFit, I did everything. And starting the Buttery Bros, I felt like I was starting back over, where I did everything. I was organizing. I went to business and law school for the matter of full 2 or 3 months, because I was trying to figure out how to manage contracts with brands. And then I'm also trying to go out and shoot. And then I'm going home and I'm editing. And now I'm in front of the camera, all of it. But as we've progressed as a company and as in the space and in both kind of trajectories, both in CrossFit and now outside of it, it's figuring out what you love to do and embedding yourself more in that, and then hiring confident and capable people around you that you trust to fulfill your vision. And we've been lucky enough to work with awesome people, Julian or Rick Jones, or we have Steph Berniason is an assistant editor. We have this new guy, Ryan Malik, that's been crushing it on edits. And hiring people to work alongside you that are as passionate as you are is something that really opens you up. But you might like doing editing, or you might like shooting, or you might like different elements of it. So figure out what you like and where you want to focus, and then build around that so you can keep doing what you need to do to be fulfilled.
Love it.
Did you want me to follow up?
Yeah.
And I've found that we've grown over the years. Like Heber was saying, we used to kind of do it all ourselves, but at this point, having a coordinating producer, people that handle the logistical side of things in terms of scheduling, what time you need to be here, what time you need to be there, and then production assistants and runners are really helpful. So for my camera, I need someone to carry the tripod for me, which is part of my story whenever we get to that. We have people who bring us batteries and cards, because everything goes back to the trailers. And so rather than us have to leave the camera, run back, someone's just at the end of an event, someone says, all right, here's a card. They give me a new card. Here's a battery. You switch that stuff out. Little things like that are really, really helpful. Not everyone has the means to do that. But once you get into a team situation, having people who can do that kind of stuff and help will definitely help you focus on, the job.
Absolutely. Yeah, I figured you two were going to be a better person to answer that question. All right, the question everybody's wondering and waiting for. Josi?
Hit him, Josi.
Give me the deets, Josi.
Yeah.
Be very detailed.
Tinder was buzzing in Madison, but I'm unfortunately still single.
Yo, was it wild?
It was good. It was
Oh
some
my
good
God.
matches, but then like when you're at the games, there's no time to do anything else than shoot and edit, unfortunately.
Josie, you'd make it work.
All right.
The chef makes it work.
Wait, somebody asked a question for. Oh yeah. Here, Torin. At the beginning of the podcast, you mentioned something about like your crazy stories,
All right, I'll try to.
and everybody can say theirs. And also, I want to hear like what's your favorite part of the games as well.
Ooh, favorite part. All right, so let me do the story first. So the pool event, there was limited room to shoot in the pool. I don't know if anyone else experienced that, but we were told that our entire crew would not be able to cover the pool event. So the night before, I was in the war room helping cover that, and I get a text message saying like, here are the shooters going to the pool. If you're not on this list, then you have the morning off. So I'm like, oh, awesome. I'm not on the list. So I slept in, and as I'm getting ready, Tyson Oldroyd calls me and he says, we have a spot for your camera. Someone will meet you at the venue at 10:30 to bring you over to the pool. And I'm like, all right. So I head over there, get my camera ready. Someone's carrying my tripod. We're heading out to the car. They put the tripod in the car. I'm trying to get into the car. I'm like, can you unlock the car? They say, I am unlocking it, and it's not unlocking. The car alarm goes off for like 25 seconds. And I'm like, is this the right car? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then we realize that it is not the right car. So I'm like, well, let's just get the tripod and then we'll get out of here. No, now, because the car alarm went off, the car locked. So now my tripod is stuck in the back of this minivan. Our actual minivan, the same exact color, model, and everything, is like 5 spots over. At this point, my camera is useless without that tripod. It's like a giant, huge tripod. So the person who's helping me is freaking out, and I'm on the phone saying like, hey, we have a problem. We have a slight problem. Might not be able to get there with my camera. She's going to get the sheriffs. She thinks the sheriffs will be able to open the car. I'm looking in the car. We see that it's a rental. So we're like, well, is it one of ours? So calling Tyson, calling other people, like, hey, is this your car? Sending a picture of the license plate. It's nobody's in our camp's car. I look inside and I see a squeegee, just like a piece of plastic that has tape on it that I know is used for like applying vinyl or like signage. And so I'm like, man, I bet this is somebody on the signage team's van. And so I called Tyson. I'm like, hey, who do I talk to about this? And he's like, oh, you want to talk to so-and-so. So I run into the place where Rogue stores all their gear, and I see Katie. And I'm like, hey, I'm looking for the signage team. Can you point me in the direction of the signage team? And she's like, oh, you want to talk to Aaron? He's over there. So then I go over to this guy, Aaron. I'm like, hey, dude, this is going to sound crazy, but I think we put my tripod in the back of your car by accident, and now it's locked and we can't get it out. And he's like, what? And I'm like, does somebody in your camp have like a black minivan? And he asks, and he goes, oh yeah, like, Tim, that's Tim. Tim was driving that. So he goes over where Tim's at. Tim's not there, but he finds the keys. And I'm like, is there a license plate number on there? And we look, and it matches up with the picture I took. And I said, can I just take these keys, unlock it? I'll be right back. And he's like, sure. And so I run back to the parking lot, hit the button. I see it open. I run back, give him the keys. We get the tripod out, get into our actual car, and then we get to the pool venue with maybe like 10 minutes to spare. But it was one of those stories where it was like you couldn't have made this up.
How did the trunk open?
It was unlocked. Originally, it was unlocked, and then
conspiracies.
Hey,
Thanks, Enterprise.
Michael, I remember you mentioned that you wanted to ask Carly. You had a lot of questions for Carly.
I actually think we asked them all.
You asked them already? Okay.
Yeah, no, I was really just curious about like the emotional connection over the week of the games and how it changed. And but no, she answered that great. And then I wanted to also ask if she had ever tackled anyone, and she asked. I don't know why I wanted to ask that, but I learned it today too, so it's great.
There you go, Eric. Did you answer that question? how you felt with your athletes that you're around the whole, all year round? Well, mostly Mal, right?
Yeah, mostly Mal, and Jay would come in periodically, but yeah, mostly Mal. Yeah, dude, it was cool. It was different. I was there in 2019, and then the last year, and it was cool. It was fun. Like if you're not around them regularly, you try to learn as much as you can on your own. That way, you can come up with a narrative in your head to best tell a story. But yeah, this year was really cool as far as like being around Mal and just seeing like her manage all the different emotions, like especially when she got the leader jersey, like the team was on such a high because that was her first year. This is her first year getting the jersey, and it was huge, and she's so young, and understanding all the stuff that happened like right before the games, and then she gets there and then she's doing what she's doing, and then when she got the leader jersey, it was amazing. And then just seeing how she reacted to the adversity, it was like, and then that moment where like there's so many good moments for her, and not even just her, but Jason as well. Like, with Mal, with that I forgot which event it was, but it was the one with the clean and jerks where she just went full mob. She just went like bananas. She didn't put the barbell down, and she just went nuts. Like that was amazing. Those are the types of things that like we knew she was capable of, just sending it. And when she like showed that and really like responded to adversity very well, and along with Jason as well, like it just made us all so proud as a team. And then to be right where I needed to be at the end. And I got very lucky on this. Like people were so cool about it. Like to be in eyesight, perfect eyesight for Mal. And then I just saw heads turn around behind me. And it was when Matt was in the stands and he was bawling. And I was like, oh shit. So I was just kind of like spiraling like a squirrel trying to get both moments. I was like, oh shit. Like he's crying really hard. She's crying. Then she ran to her mom, and then Matt was bawling. And I was like, damn it. So I was just like, but I was thankful to be right there because all the events were amazing. Her having the leader jersey, Jason with the sandbag event, like he stole the night, in my opinion, but I'm biased. And then to be there at that moment was like worth it, like for the whole weekend. I was actually I was messaging Carly, like it was really hard for me personally to try to like get going because I put so much pressure on myself to like get to just not fuck it up. And I kind of got in my own way, like in the first. I didn't really feel like until after that sandbag event with Jay, I was like, okay, cool, I'm here. Like it wasn't because I was just putting too much pressure on myself to like get it, and I wasn't doing what I'd always done, and whatever that may be. And then I finally just clicked it on, and then from there I was like, okay, cool, now we're here. And then thankfully it happened then, because I would have been pissed if I would have missed those moments. But it was so cool, man. It was nice. Like I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like I'm grateful for the last 2 years to be able to like shoot the athletes that I did, but then, the athletes that I did, and then Matt's return as a spectator, and then now having the team. And then we had an awesome team that helped us as well, like as far as scheduling goes, getting us fed. Like it just made my job so much easier just to be there. So it was awesome, man. I'm very grateful to be able to be there. For her to be the youngest to podium like that it was really sick, dude.
I think Eric, you make a really great comment about getting in your own head. And we, just so you know, my first games was 2017 as a volunteer. As a volunteer, I'd worked regionals before for a protein company. We all go through that, even those of us who are seasoned. I feel like it takes me a good day to get in sync with how I'm shooting. And even after I got home on Monday, and I literally didn't leave my couch for 18 hours because, I needed to elevate my foot. But I even had moments where thinking, did I get everything I needed to do? Like I second guess myself. So that's a completely natural feeling. And we all go through that.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's like, and it helps. Like, and I wouldn't like shoo it away at all. I'm grateful for it because it helps me just stay sharp. I think I understand that it's just part of the process of, you're not always going to be, the events are hard. Like it's been nice just to listen to everybody. Like they're difficult. You're not always going to get the spot that you want. So your ability to adjust on the fly and stick to what got you to the dance and just do your thing, it really helps. And then I guess just the first half, I couldn't really turn that on. Like I really couldn't do it. But I go back and I look at them and I was like, okay, like, not not bad, but I was just thankful. Like, it was all worth it at the end. I was like, okay, great. It was just getting over that stupid little thing that you have in your head. And then thankfully, though, I was just glad that I had them to focus on. So it was cool. I was grateful. You know, we had some help, like shout outs to my boy Richard Batesman, who got like a golden shot of Mal like running down when she was celebrating. And I was like, you know, I wish I had that frontal shot. Like, I wasn't there. I think I PR'd my 50-yard dash. I like when she got, it was like the wall ball event where it was outside. I think I PR'd, dude, 100%. Like, I dipped down the line because I was like, I need to get this shot. And I have like a 3/4 one, which is like, I enjoy it. But then Richard got this front one, and he was so cool just to like help out. And I was like, and then I was just grateful for everybody in the pitch this year because, and I don't know whether if it's like what it may be, like whether if it's this podcast and everybody's talking, and I think it's cool, but everybody was so sick this year, and for him to be helpful like that, I was like, dude, thank you. Like, I could care less if I got it or he got it. I would have loved to had it, like have shot in it, but he shot it and he gave him the shot, and I was like, dude, all credit to you. Like, you were there for that one. It was amazing. But yeah, it was cool. It was nice to be able to be the one to document it, and it's just an honor, for like a lack of a better.
Yeah, and I have the same. Well, before we go there, my buddy Frank is saying 32 watch, actually 38 right now, and only 12 likes. So everybody that's listening, hit the like button. Come on, you know better than this. But I have the same question for Josi, because he's documenting Gabi Migawa's whole season, right? And he's actually doing a documentary called All Gas No Brakes. So I'm only guessing that you felt the same way when you saw Gabi out there.
Yeah, it was rough. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like, I mean, we talked about emotional investment in the athletes, and you know, when the athlete's doing great, you're doing great. If the athlete's not doing that great, it's not doing good. Look at you, Patrick. I like that sticker.
Let's go.
Yeah, I also feel like Eric, where I found myself pretty much like on Saturday afternoon. So yeah, it was just like when you're a one-man show and you have to obviously work for the brands, the documentary at the same time. It's really hard, and the emotions really kick in. I mean, I don't know if it was Eric or Bennett next to me, but after the pool event, there was this moment where, like, I've seen Gabi work on her swim for the past year, and I've been to the pool with her every second week or something like that. And then coming out of that pool event, not where she wanted to be, and just like the look she gave me without even like saying a word or anything, I was just like, fuck, like it was like really disheartening. So it was a bit hard, but yeah, like I feel like also like Carly said, like if you're not fully emotionally invested in the athletes, and you know you don't build a crew like that around you, like you kind of don't have the same purpose either. And you know, when you do great work, you feel like you've done even greater work, and whenever you do like not so great work, then you question yourself even more, and questioning yourself even more makes you better. I think there's like this one moment at the games where I really hated myself was at the Capitol when she won the event, and it was her first ever CrossFit Games event win. And the celebration finish was slightly out of focus, and I swear I was banging my head against the wall. I was like, how the hell did I miss the one shot I shouldn't have to miss? I missed it, you know. But it's part of the game.
Josi, I got you.
My man, thank you. But also, like Eric said, I mean, in the pit, everyone was super nice. So, and I know, like, if I missed something, you know, I could just like reach out to people there and get those shots I was missing. But yeah, honestly, being emotionally invested in an athlete, it's so hard. Like, it's really, really hard, especially when you know them so well that like just looking at their face after an event, you know exactly what's going through their mind. Like 100%, you're like, yep, it's not very good. And obviously, you have to adapt as well. And as a professional, you also have to learn how to get over it and still deliver on your work. You know, you can't just like moan on yourself. Like you have to like be like, okay, like this happened, but I still have something else to do. So yeah, it was not easy, but hopefully the doco will come out good. I hope so. And yeah, we'll see. We'll learn for next year.
Was anybody else super sad on Monday? I remember talking to Carly like the day after the games, and we were like, what's going on? Like, I feel like I'm, you know, well, first it's like it could be the last time like that I'm gonna be documenting like Rich's like career, or I guess the year, because we don't know what's gonna happen. And for Carly, same thing with Tia. On Monday, I was like, what's happening? Like, I was just pretty sad the whole day. Well, I wouldn't say sad. I was just kind of like, I was running in such a high for the whole week. I was like super stoked. And then when everything just ended, it's kind of like you get to the point that you're like, you know, everything just kind of like hits you right away, and you're like, oh gosh, I don't know how to like feel right now. But
Carlos, you were hungover. You weren't sad. You were hungover.
No, definitely not hangover. Maybe a little bit, but yeah, it's just a weird feeling to think that this could be like, I don't know if next year I'm gonna be with the Mayhem crew again. It just kind of like, it was such a like good week for me, that when it comes to an end, you think like what's gonna happen, you know, like I was almost like at that point that I was like pinching myself. I couldn't believe that just happened. Like it was such like an epic week. I felt like very good about all the stuff that I produced, but at the same time, like this might be it. Like you don't know what's gonna happen if I'm gonna, I don't know.
I think for me, throughout the week, I kind of just like, in order to stay on top of my work, I kind of just store all of my feelings somewhere, and like I put it kind of in a box, and then just so that I can focus on the work that I have, because it's a lot. And then once the games are over, I kind of get to unpack that a little bit more and see how like I'm feeling and doing and whatever. So that's why like I always know, like even after any type of big event or anything where I'm asked to focus on performance instead of focus on how I'm doing, I know that I'm going to have some time after where I have to like sit and think about how I'm doing. And so like, yeah, like Carlos and I were messaging about like, there's a lot there. Like there's good moments, there's hard moments, there's exciting moments and whatever. And so like, I always really like make myself sit with it, like, and like appreciate it, because it doesn't happen every month. It happens once a year. So like, that's something that like, I think it's important to feel that. So
yeah, I had to like write it down before I went out every day, like because I can feel my brain getting clustered and whatever. If I was like overstimulated emotionally, like just talking to a lot of people, like Matt's really good about this. Like he'll at the end of the day, he'll just like go to his room because he needs to like decompress, and understandably so, because he always does that regularly, but especially this trip. So I was taking a note from him, and I was just like, whatever that may be, like I was just trying to write shit out, and it helped just like stay clear, whatever it be. Like some people, you talk to somebody, go alone. Like I found like writing it down prior, like just help work it out real fast, and that way when I'm out there, I'm like, okay, at least it's like it's worked out in some way.
I found that decompressing is really cool. I mean, that's what I did, is instead of just, you know, because I have more work to do, I have to write all these recaps and takeaways. So regarding what we had and what we just experienced, and we're in the morning, Chocolate was taking the whole week off, so I got to re-engage here in the next couple of days. But the last couple of days, I kind of just separated myself from CrossFit, and I did that by shooting. Like for instance, last night I shot something completely different than CrossFit. I shot the MGK concert last night, so that was just really cool. That was just really cool to just kind of like something out of the realm completely, and just sit there and just, you know, experience a concert and then shoot that. And it just felt really cool to just kind of step away. And then, you know, now doing this, it's kind of giving me a fresh perspective on things. And yeah, that was kind of my way of decompressing.
Michael, how do you feel the day after?
No, Ginny's ready. Ginny's geared up.
I actually just,
Ginny the mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just had a question for the whole group, just because, you know, we're talking a lot about the creative space, and I would like to know what your feelings are, not talking specifically about the companies you shoot for or the people you shoot for, but what is something that you've really seen positive outcome-wise of the expansion of the CrossFit space, opening up for media and allowing you to tell your story? So I kind of would like to see and hear that perspective on how that's been, how you think that's positively changed the game for creatives. Does that make sense?
I think we lost part of your question, Ginny. I didn't hear, like you got to the bulk of what the question was, and you kind of glitched.
Oh, okay. Well, you know, leave it to a car. I guess I was asking what you feel is the most positive aspect in the CrossFit space as a whole with the expansion of, allowing more media avenues to come in and tell their stories, and what you would like to see in the future from that?
Yeah. Well, for me, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
For me, it's just kind of like the reason why I'm shooting CrossFit is because first I started doing CrossFit as a sport, right? And I told Heber in our podcast that's one of the reasons why I started doing CrossFit is because I was watching the movies, right? Movies that Michael was involved. I think Torin was involved too in the shooting process of it. Heber was the producer, editor, and all that. So one of the reasons why I'm shooting CrossFit and why I started doing CrossFit is because of the media, like like people like putting content out there on CrossFit. So the expansion, just having more media people, I feel like it's also opening the door for new people to see what CrossFit is. It's more like like this, just people like being jacked and like fitnessing for time. It's just like it's first of all like health. It teaches you many things about just more than just being fit, right? And also like the community aspect of it. And that's why like the community, I always say the media community, it's so close and so like we get along so well. It's because of just the CrossFit community being what it is. So I just think it's opening more doors for people to see what CrossFit is, and also for new creators to bring a new perspective into photography, like Eric and Carly, that they're bringing a completely different style into the industry, different colors, different details. Like you see Eric taking pictures of like a hand just grabbing a bar with the chalk, getting all crazy, and then Carly doing some different angles that I feel like I never saw before. So that's what I think. I think it's just helping the industry just to get a little more, just to expand the industry and open more doors.
I think Heber probably can also talk on this too, but I also think it's having more media, having more content creators creates more opportunities for the athletes. And by creating more opportunities, that means creating more opportunity for them to earn more money, to earn a living, to professionalize the sport. And by professionalizing the sport, that means you're bringing in more brands, more sponsors. And as that elevates up, then that means there's going to be more content creators brought in. And it also brings up the value of our work as well. And it means that we're getting paid more on the professional level. I mean, Ginnie knows this really well in terms of working for a professional organization, and we all know in terms of our rates and what we get paid. It's not up there. I mean, we're not getting paid as professional photographers that a professional photographer or videographer does at the NFL, especially us that are kind of working independently outside of CrossFit. But yeah, having more media there is creating a lot more opportunities. It's growing the space, and it's putting more money into the community and our space, the sport, and it's allowing people to create jobs. I mean, this is all our job in one way or the other.
I think that's awesome. Can you hear me now? Am I better?
Yeah.
Okay. I know that I think the list was when I was talking to the media liaisons, which are not, in our media room, but I think it was upwards of around 200 to 250 press passes or media passes that were granted. So the sport has definitely evolved to allow for athletes to be able to hire out so many creators. I mean, I think that's what's pretty impressive is, 2017, you hardly saw any press creators shooting for brands because they just couldn't pay for people to do it. But nowadays, I mean, I admire that athletes are in a position to hire out a photographer. Even some are hiring, multiple photographers for the whole week. That's what I think is pretty great, seeing that the athletes are able to make a living and also, hire people to help them out and get content for them.
At what point do you guys think that it can maybe get to become an issue? Like whether if that be too crowded, because you think about all the athletes, and if they are hiring 2 to 3, I'm not saying don't bring content creators at all. I want to bring this kind of to a negative way, but there's a realistic thing, and that is called space. And I think this podcast is beautiful because we have conversations, and I think we saw that on display, and we were all very cordial with each other. I thought it was awesome. But there is a real issue as far as like space. So it's like, at what point, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. We don't have to address it now, but it's like, I'm curious as far as like, at what point do we get like where it's too many? Because that's like, I don't want to like bring it down, but it's like, also don't want to play happy dory on this, because it's like, there is like, because I love the opportunity that people are going to come in, like it allowed myself to get in at a point where, but it's like, I'm curious, like, do we get is a bigger venue the thing? Is more access around the pit of the thing? Like, what is it that helps us evolve as content creators? I'm not saying don't bring less people, but do we get more access around? Do we get more, like, what is that thing? Because what I would hate as like a community is we get to that bridge and there's no solution.
Yeah.
Or there's a knee-jerk solution. There's a knee-jerk solution, and it's more of like, oh shit, we'll just throw them there.
Well, I absolutely don't have an answer for that, but I can tell you, like, look at the Olympics, and I wish, we had some insight from some of the Olympic photographers I know, but the CrossFit Games is actually less restrictive than traditional professional spaces. Olympics, you have very restricted media spaces. At collegiate football games, there are certain lines and areas depending on if you're AP or if you're Gannett or if you're working for the college. I mean, they do restrict access significantly more than CrossFit does.
Yeah.
So as for being able to access, you guys have pretty phenomenal access compared to a professional sporting space. But I also see your point where if we're having athletes who are hiring 2 and 3 and 4 photographers, where does that draw the line? And I don't have an answer for you. And I'm sure that's something, and let me say that I can't speak for CrossFit, but I'm sure that's something they think about and that they consider for the next year.
Ginnie, it'd be so cool to talk to like somebody like yourself and like people who work in the Olympic space too, to like.
Well, I don't work in the Olympics. I have friends who work in the Olympics.
No, if you have friends. No, that's what I meant. If you have friends, I didn't think you said that. If you have.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure. I'm a big fan of not misrepresenting myself. So, but learning from them and understanding that. So I think it would be insightful to have some higher level. I mean, Torin knows this quite well. I mean, he has worked, I think, at the highest of professional spaces. Torin, did you ever do Olympics, or was it all just NFL and NBA? But you know as well as I do that, March Madness, we had little 2x2 squares that we could sit on underneath the basketball hoop. That was our space. So it's, I think it would be interesting to see the different perspectives on how they navigate that moving forward, because I can't imagine 500 press passes in the next year if that were to get to that level.
Well, Ginnie, I think they're actually working towards that. A lot of the new hires they brought into CrossFit have a background in professional sports or collegiate sports, and they've seen it at that level. So I think they're bringing in the right people to address that, because they're seeing it grow, hopefully.
Yeah, like I said, I can't speak for them, but I can't imagine them not being mindful of that, because I think they're proactive in everything that comes up, and even thinking about things that potentially would come up.
I think as this grows, I think it's going to go backwards, in the sense that it's going to be less access for outside shooters, and that's the way all other professional sports work. And there are levels to it, right, in terms of like rights holders for the broadcast, and then, organization, and then, certain sponsors, and they will like tier it out. And if you're like, if they view you as bottom of the barrel, then you might not get the credential.
Enjoy it now, everybody.
Yeah, it's,
When people ask me like, hey, how do I get a ticket to the CrossFit Games? I'd be like, just apply for a media pass. They're letting anybody in.
It's true.
Like, I remember in 2019, there was like a 15-year-old kid with an iPhone on the side. And I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
Plenty of iPhones.
I don't know what I missed. My dog was going crazy and I had to like go out. But let me see. We have here a question for Michael. Did you guys answer this one? Did it go on the screen? No. Okay. And also Michael needs to go soon. So let's let him talk for a moment
Can you explain the reason behind the 2 toys I had on my desk this past week? Oh, I had this little Boba Fett on my desk at the games this week. I bought myself a toy recently to keep at my computer, essentially just to remind myself that playing is essential in my job, and to maintain an attitude of playfulness, because to all of our points, and so much of what we discussed the whole time, like, yes, there are moments that we have to do a job, and we have to to Carly's point, turn off our emotions and box them up and get the task done. But at the end of the 2020 games, that was an emotional roller coaster start to finish. I sobbed crying. I snuck out back and wept at the end of the games that year. And I feel like having an emotional attachment to so much of what we talked about it is crucial to me, in the way that I make things. And so I kept a little, this little Boba Fett guy came with 2 jetpacks. So he's got this guy, and he's got the original little guy, where the
original rocket
little missile. Yeah.
Does this little thing come up? His little signaler thing?
No, that's the one that's worth a lot of money.
No, this is a $6 one from Target.
Yeah.
Love
He's
that.
got a little blaster though. So every day I changed his jetpack, and that was my it was an intentional moment where I switched out how I was going to play with this toy for the day, just to remind myself that my job, my work, requires me to play, and to not take any of it to the job has to be taken seriously. I don't believe creativity should be boxed into being taken seriously. I think creativity has to be messy. I think we need to allow for the messiness of creativity. And so that was my little, my daily practice was just to change out Boba Fett's backpack. But
it's so sick, dude.
Yeah, but it worked for me. So I will be, and now my daughter has got me a small Donkey Kong because she has noticed that I have toys on my desk. So apparently this is my future. There's a lot of little trinkets.
Love it.
But Carlos, I have to run.
Yep.
Thank y'all all so much for having me.
No, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
See y'all. Thank you,
Michael. Appreciate you.
I might.
Bye, dude.
All right, everybody else that's left. Again, if you guys need to go, you can. Let me see if we have any questions here. I guess one question for Michael that he's not here anymore.
721.
Oh yeah, Heber, how was the premiere?
Premiere crushed. Yeah, did really well.
Somebody,
Yeah.
2 people text me. They said, "Hey, I saw you on the Buttery Bros video."
I watched it last night. I'm a Patreon. You're welcome, Heebs.
My guy.
So I got to watch it last night. I was so excited. So great job, Heebs.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I tried to interview a bunch of Carly's in there. Carlos is in there. Shots by Roka's in. I think he's in there. But yeah, we launched our episode. It's doing really well.
All right. Well,
I wanted to address one thing you guys talked
yes.
about earlier, which was you guys talking about the emotions you feel while filming, and specifically when you're tied to one athlete. I think that's very that's a rough position to put yourself in as a creator, because there's a few different angles of this. When you're filming with one athlete, you're really diving in, and it's a roller coaster weekend for you. And so I encourage creators to, when I filmed Froning, I wanted to experience Rich Froning that weekend. So I literally avoided any of the group meetings about production that weekend, because I didn't want to have any inside information. I wanted to find out things as they were happening from the athlete's perspective. And so while doing that, when Rich goes into isolation and all the athletes are kind of quartered off and there's events happening in the stadium, I was going through that with them. I didn't know what the athletes were going out to do. And I feel when you do that, your feelings come through in your work, because you're trying to connect with the athlete as much as possible. But there's also a different.
Did it cut off for everybody?
Yeah.
Well, let's see if he comes back. Oh,
I'm back.
There you go. You're back.
There we go.
Okay.
There you go.
So then the other side of that is like you go. You don't want your emotions to get in the way of the athlete's performance that weekend. So if you're too attached to it and you're too close to the athlete, and you like are experience it to, like you don't want your negative emotions to impact their weekend. So you also have to find ways to like keep yourself happy and keep yourself abreast, and not like let what you're going through affect their performance. I think that's like key when dealing with athletes. And so we found by spreading our coverage. So if you're filming with just one athlete, film with two, like find an athlete that's in a different sex that you're also following, or another male athlete, or if it's like two male athletes. Spread your coverage out mainly for your own emotional impact, because you can go from having this negative thing to go into another athlete who's having a very positive thing, and then it kind of keeps you even keel so that you can do your job a little bit better. That's something that I've discovered over the years. And we didn't make that mistake we did this documentary with Chandler during the Granite Games, and Chandler did not have a good weekend, but we hired Evan Borsier, who did an incredible job of like being very optimistic about it. He was like experiencing this really kind of crappy weekend for Chandler, and Chandler's not his bubbly, fun self. But he was like totally into it. He was like, no, like this is a human story and I like this. And so he was able to keep himself emotionally in check throughout that weekend, while also documenting like a really important journey of an athlete not having a great weekend at a CrossFit event. And so just keep those things in mind.
Because you don't want to influence that in any way, right? Like you want to be there experiencing it, but you don't want to be the one to push it in a certain way.
Especially in a negative way.
Yeah.
Especially in
you don't want
to be, yeah.
You don't want to be a part of that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, in this sense too, it was interesting because like it was interesting because I was like, okay, this is 100% not my job. I was like, any emotion managing of like Mal or Jay, I was like, that's Matt's job. Like I'm just here to like cover it. But that's really super like awesome that you say that, because it would be easier. It's like it would be a habit, like a natural human habit to want to influence it in a certain way, or want to like fix it per se, for lack of a better term. But that's not your job.
And I think I think that's really good.
That with you.
Go ahead, Eve. Sorry.
Go ahead, Pat. I was going to say, I experienced that with you, Eric, because when we were there doing quarterfinals with Mal, like Mal and Matt were still kind of figuring out what's going on in that relationship. And then having us as a camera crew there was almost a little bit more tension than necessary. So we just kind of like removed ourselves from that situation until we found like a nice workflow. And so you have to be ready to evolve and make sure the athlete has a positive experience with their relationship with you. And I think that's something that I've made very important for my career, because I've been doing this for a really long time. If I hadn't done that and I had continued, like if Rich had a negative experience back in 2014 working with me, I probably wouldn't be doing this 5 to 10 years later, like you want to establish a really long career. You want to build relationships with many athletes that is net positive over years to come.
And you've led the way, I feel like, on the pieces that you make with that, Heber.
I know I came in halfway, but just on that note, it was kind of interesting. I was kind of thinking through being emotionally connected to athletes, and there are a few like Ricky that I have known for just a little bit of time since he was stateside in Vegas, and I was out there spending some time with him. But one example is like Kelsey Keel's team, like during the pegboard event, and she just could not get that last rep. And I was standing there and I was taking some pictures, and I'd taken some of her, and then I just stopped taking pictures because I felt bad. I felt bad that the event was not going well for the team, that they were not going to advance any further past off the pegboard. And it's unfortunate because, I probably could have still gotten some pictures of, the other athletes on the team doing the worm, or maybe just some other content, but I got emotionally invested and I just stopped shooting really for the rest of the event. Didn't even realize kind of what had happened until after, where I'm like, well, I don't know why I did that, but it was because I was emotionally like, dang, this sucks. Like I feel so bad for her. And I just was sitting there with my camera in my hand. So, and that's somebody that, I have not spent a lot of time with, have not covered that often. So for, people like yourselves who've been even more emotionally attached for longer durations with athletes, I'm sure it's even, 3, 4, 5 times as hard to separate yourself from.
It gets hard, but one thing that I really try to do, and one reason why like we kill ourselves during the season to get to as many athletes as possible, is to have conversations ahead of time before you're at the tension of the CrossFit Games of like, hey, we want to document your journey, and your journey has highs and lows, and your highs won't feel as good if we don't document the lows. And so I never feel comfortable. Like we were filming with Laura Horvath back at the 2019 Dubai, and the first event went awful for her. The first day she's like in tears, and we put our cameras away and we just kind of let her have that emotion. And then I pulled her aside after she had a positive win, and I said, hey, look, you're going to have these highs and lows. I have to document these lows because the highs are going to feel so much better when you can see them in contrast with where you've come from. And she was like, I totally understand. And so when later that weekend she had almost like a kind of a big meltdown after an event, she was comfortable with us there with the camera because we had that conversation. We had built that relationship beforehand. And so throughout the season, whether you're working with brands or whether, like Sroka, you do a really good job with this because you're out with athletes. Like I see you all over the country building rapport. And I think that goes so far when it comes time for the CrossFit Games. Like most of my travel isn't to just get content along the season. It's also to build a relationship for the most stressful situations, which are semis in the games.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was talking to Torin about that too. I had the first day before the first day, whenever they were doing the registration stuff, the check-in, Torin went to interview Rich, and I went kind of like behind the scenes just to take some photos of Rich, and it's pretty cool because I've been doing some of that, like, interview settings myself. So obviously seeing somebody like Torin that's been doing it for a lot longer, I kind of like, got some like feedback and stuff. Like I feel like I learned some stuff just from watching him, and I talked to him after that at the hotel. I was like, hey Torin, I really like your approach on like how, like the questions you were asking Rich, and it felt like it was just like two people that they've known for a while just talking and just kind of like having like a normal conversation. And Torin said some similar, like it's just like the relationship that I've built throughout the years. Like, Torin have been there whenever Rich doesn't have a good event, whenever Rich wins. So it's like just building that relationship throughout the years. And then obviously Rich felt as comfortable as he's going to feel in front of Torin answering all the questions. I don't know if you remember that moment, Torin.
Yeah. The more comfortable you are with someone, the easier an interview is. If you try to interview, and then also Rich is just comfortable in general. He's been doing it so long, right? Like he could probably sit down with just about anyone and he's going to give you a good interview. Someone like Mal, who is younger, and when she's in front of the camera, not nearly as confident. She's very short. I mean, you could ask her the greatest question, like, also your line of questioning, right? You don't want to set it up where they can just say yes or no. But you could set Mal up for a great answer and she's going to give you the shortest answer possible. She just doesn't I've had a hard time getting her to open up. And then we kind of let Matt do a lot of the talking for her because Matt's just been tremendous. I'm sure Heber, you've experienced that. But yeah, it's all about making them as comfortable as you can and keeping it feeling like just a casual conversation,
Yep.
I think that's where Josi has a really unique perspective on that because, again, he has a friendship with Gabby, and now he's documenting her whole season. And, I can't imagine. I mean, obviously, her weekend didn't go as planned. But how did you try to keep that separated? And how does that change your plan in terms of the documentary? Because, do you still put a very positive spin on it? Or do you talk about some of those hardships?
Well, I think like leading up, so when I saw kind of how the weekend was going to go, I already like knew in my mind a bit how I wanted to twist the narrative of the whole thing. And the good thing is what we try to do is we try to get like some stuff in between, but it's also very hard to get like the in between stuff, if you have to run from the media pit to the warm up area and get something there and then come back. So I guess it allows me to twist the narrative a little bit when we do the interviews, and we generally do the interviews like 2-3 weeks after, just because we want everything to be like cooled down and like good perspective. So yeah, I mean, we just dictate. I guess we talk before doing the interviews. Okay, what do we want to portray, and then I'll just build a narrative around it. If that answers your question, Patrick. But also, I feel like what Torin says about confidence in the camera and like when they're young or when they're older, I also think it's a matter of experience. So, for example, when I did the first episode with Gabby, it was so hard to get something out. You know, it was like a trailer pretty much, and it was so hard to get like a proper sound bite out. And I was like, in front of the creators, like, how do I make this work? And now look, like 4 or 5 episodes later, after a whole year of being with her and pointing a camera at her face, now it's more like, okay, I'm sitting in front of like this 1-hour interview, and I need to like cut out just like the best stuff because she just got used to talking so much. I also think it's a matter of like how often you put a camera in people's face. And then from there, I guess every athlete, like they're not like actors in a sense, like they also had to learn that. So the more you put them in that position, the better they're gonna be. I'm pretty sure for Mal, like do the same documentary next year, it's gonna be a completely different person in front of the camera.
Well, Mal was like discovering herself as well, and like
Yeah,
we say this all the time. Like we were saying this all the time too. Like and it was like Torin, to your point too. Like even when I first met her, it was like very short, and then like now we did like a short one with her at the end, and like I think after this year, like I'm hopeful that like next year it's a little bit different because I think now this year she has like a little bit of like more confidence to herself because she's growing as like a person. So it was like interesting to see. Because yeah, even for myself in the beginning, it was like, okay, this is like not ideal.
Well, Haley used to be that way too, and now when you watch interviews with Haley, you know you can see her personality come out. I mean, to the point where she makes someone like Savon uncomfortable. You know, so
and we found like Mal's like one of the silliest people that we know too. Like the more time you spend, like, oh, dude, she's super goofy. But
what I would advise for like people that shoot for like, you know, Josi, Eric, Carly, you know, whatever, if you know, to give these athletes, encourage them to do more interviews. You know, I mean, like I said, working for the Morning Chalk Up, I'm constantly reaching out, trying to get interviews and stuff like that. It's not because, and part of that is, I would say, encourage them to go do more interviews like that because they'll just get better at practice, and then they can start hearing some of these questions because a lot of these questions are going to be repeated again, and they can shape and rephrase a lot of these answers and start telling stories as opposed to, like Torin said, just saying yes or no. Because when you ask a question, you want them to kind of lead in with a story of why they're saying yes, why they're saying no, like you would have a conversation. And I would encourage your athletes to just do more interviews.
Guys, Torin needs to go. He sent me a message. I don't want to keep him for too much longer.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
thanks,
you guys
Torin.
are awesome. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yep,
thanks Torin, for your insight,
being
bro.
on the stream, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yep. All right, I'll see you guys. Bye.
Yep. See you. Bye. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
All right. So I have a question here. It says, how much do you consider YouTube views as a point of success to your work? Or do you only think about creating content that you love? I'm guessing Heaps will be the first person to answer that one because he's the only one that's
no YouTube channel.
Channel famous and all that. But when it comes to creating content, that I feel like this is something that I've learned in the past year more than before. That most of the content or all of the content I'm trying to create is something that I'm passionate about. It like the whole like followers and likes has come to like a completely different, like, it's not something that's gonna fulfill me. And at the end of the day, I want to create stuff that I love. And I talked to Carly about this on her pod, and I showed to Torin too. And it's something that you just need to be, or for me, for example, when I post something or when I'm creating something, I care about like being proud of the stuff I'm making. It's something that I love. If I'm creating something that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make this because I know it's gonna give me, I don't know, 3,000 followers and a bunch of likes, I feel like that's not how like I'm supposed to show my work to people, right? So that's just what I think. It's that I keep in my mind all the time. Like, hey, if you're gonna make something, create something you love. If you're gonna post something that you love. And sometimes I send pictures to Carly like, hey, what do you think about this picture? Should I post it? And her answer is, if you love it, post it. Right? It's not like, oh, it just, are you proud of it? Post it.
Yeah. That's the right thing to do. I struggle with that all the time. Is it going to look good on my feed? Is it going to get good likes? Is the athlete going to accept the collab? No.
But I guess I guess he can answer the YouTube views, and then we can let Carly talk about the creating content that you love.
My metric has always been, and what I decide to do has always been like, even for over a decade now, which is making stuff that I would want to watch. And if I want to watch it, I feel like I love this community. I love fitness. I love CrossFit. I love the sport. I love the community. And if I'm interested in it, I think that community is going to watch it. And so I've never been interested in sure, the views, the likes, like it's exciting in that moment. I'm like, oh, sweet. But on the flip side of that, like, I'm also building a brand and a business and something, like, I'm looking long-term now. Like, I got a wife and kids, and I'm looking at, like, what do I want to be doing in 5 years? What do I want to be doing in 15 years? And if I'm just doing what gets me the most likes, I will end up pigeonholing myself into doing something that I don't want to be doing down the road. And so we, like, specifically for our episodes, we're always trying to find something that's like, okay, what is our target audience going to really like? And on the next one, what is it that we really want to be doing, so that we're balancing out both, like, what is going to be a crushing home run thing, and also what's going to build something that we want to be doing down the road. So, like, during the open, we're doing all the athlete stuff. We're going out and visiting as many athletes as we can. We're doing the workouts with athletes. And then almost immediately after that, we went and paddled around Kauai to experience what Hawaii is like, and also raise money for a drug recovery program there. And so it's stuff that we're passionate about, and that got a lot of views as well. But that's because we built that over time, and so that our audience expects that. So making sure that you're doing both of, like, hey, what does my audience want to see? And then also, what do I want to do? And when possible, make those worlds merge.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, 100%. It's and it's something I struggle in the past year, just to, like, what content should I create? But I also feel like talking to people like you guys helped me a lot of, like, discover, like, what's my purpose in content creation. And Katie's asking, what is your metric of success in something this massive? What tells you I succeeded? I think for me, it's a couple of things. One is obviously being, I've learned to be, like, confident and proud of my work. And if I feel like at the end of the week, like, I'm proud of this, I feel like I succeeded. But at the same time, it's, if the clients I'm working with, if the athletes that I'm, documenting throughout the week, if they also feel like, hey, the content that you produce, it's telling my story throughout the week. If the clients are happy, if the people at Mayhem are like, hey, like, I think that you did a great job, that's also, I feel like that's one of the metrics of success for me, because at the end of the day, like, I'm working with them to tell a story, of their athletes. So if they're happy and at the end of the week they feel like I did a good job, I feel like it was a success. What do you think, Carly? Metrics of success for you?
Yeah, I mean, that's hard. I think, like, partially, I work for Tia and Shane, so, like, I want them and the athletes to love, like, the work that I do, of course, but I try really hard to not just do it for them, like, because there are certain moments where, like, I don't know, like, maybe they don't like certain moments that I've captured because it's really real for them. And it brings a lot for them, but I appreciate it because I know that they're going to remember that forever. And so, like, I guess, like, for myself, I feel like I have a successful week of the games if I capture all that I can, like the good and the bad. Like I don't want to just like hit the floor and capture like a winning moment. Like I really want to get a moment of like Shane in tears and like her family like giving her the biggest hug and like the details as well. So like, yeah. And I also don't think that like the only time that my work is successful is when I do a good job. Like, I don't know, like the more that I attach like my own like worth to the shit that I create, like on the days where like I feel like I suck, like I don't want my worth to feel like it goes down. And that has happened a lot. So like, it's like reminding myself that like, if I do well, that's great. And if I fuck some shit up, like, of course I'm sad because I missed that moment for them, but like, I'm still going to be okay. So, yeah.
What I found out over the last couple of years from doing this is my love language is words of affirmation.
I love you, PC.
There we go. See, bam, boom. But whenever I hear from like other people in the space or even athletes saying, or if an athlete like reshares one of my pictures, that makes me proud. That makes me happy. Does it mean I made it? No, not necessarily, but I'm not here to just to make it. I'm here to spread the message, to like what Heber was saying, just, you know, do what we love and show the community and show the athletes, show our friends, you know, show these off to people. And, you know, my following isn't necessarily going to do that, but someone like, you know, I fell into this trap. Yeah. I think 2 days ago where I posted, I've been experimenting with reels, and I posted one about Tia and Brooke, and it got over 250,000 views or something like that. And I was like, wow, I've never had that happen to me. So I was like, let's make another one. So I made a reel today of Guy, and it doesn't have that many. But I'm still happy about that because I think what I created was something that I like, and I think he would enjoy as well. So, you know, words of affirmation are important, but at the same time, I think you know, you can look at something and be like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm proud of it. I love it. Then I feel like I've made it.
Yeah. And I think like with that, like the question should be, even if you get no words of affirmation, does it still mean enough to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, you know, like if you get no engagement or like your shit doesn't perform very well, does it still mean something to you? And like, that's where it's like the last post that I posted about like the athletes having pure emotion about how proud they were and like the moments of the people, I don't know, with their families and whatever, like those are moments where it's like, I don't give a fuck how people take this. Like, this makes me happy. Like this, I give a big shit about those moments for them. And I don't really care if people like it or not, because I love it, you know?
Yeah. So it's like reaffirming yourself as well.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and I think that's important, you know?
Yeah. It takes a lot of confidence. And I think that's something I've learned in this space as well. Obviously we all support each other in so many different ways. Except for Sroka, I don't support anything he does. But
that's good.
Damn.
I love you, dude. But
I retract my words of affirmation.
Exactly. But no, I get that. It's been really cool. It's been a cool adventure and just like learning about that. So to answer Katie's question, for me, it's not really about like, hey, I've made it. It's all about us making it, I think.
I think it's a collection. Like, you know, when anybody on this podcast or that's been on it, or any of the creators in the pit, like say, you know, compliment a post, that's awesome. I put that in like, oh, that's a cool experience for somebody to say that I'm working alongside. When it's just a random person who just follows you and likes your work, like that means something that's the same but different. And then it all kind of gets pushed into this one collective bowl of kind of like what you're saying, just these like points of affirmation, words of affirmation. But it is, you know, it is gratifying to have, you know, Carly say, hey, that was a cool picture, or, you know, Heeb saying, hey, love your work. Like it's like, oh wow, the girl who runs all of the proven stuff and leads that digital enterprise just complimented you. That's fantastic. Or one of the buttery bros thinks you do a good job. Like, that's cool. You can't make that the only thing that drives you to do what you do, for sure. But I'd be lying if I said it doesn't help maybe when you're feeling a little burnt out, which I think we all get, especially probably after the season is over, to say, hey, this is it's nice to get those little nuggets of compliments here and there.
It helps you know that you're on the right path, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Personally, and I like, if you've shared a hotel room with me, you'll know, like, my metric for success is more like, how many times can I watch an edit and be like, tell myself like, okay, this is dope. It doesn't happen very often. It's like, how many times, like, back to back can you watch it? There's like people who've shared a hotel room with me will know, it's like sometimes they'll hear like the same beginning of a reel, like maybe like 10, 15 times in a row, and they'll be like, okay, like, he likes that. That's my personal way of measuring success, because I don't necessarily like comparing myself to others, and I struggle a lot with imposter syndrome. So I feel like I try to stay in my lane and just like look at my work and be like, okay, like, how much do I like my work? And generally, if I like my own work, everyone else likes it, or a lot of people like it. So that's my metric.
Sick. Thank you, Renato, for that comment. Good.
Oh yeah, he said, Renato Fury says, I need to point out the elephant in the room, but Eric Castaños. Eric Castaños' video of HLPO was one of the sickest videos I've ever, not that Eric has ever made.
Thanks, man.
All right, so we're about to finish the stream. We have a question. Heber, enjoy your work. How do you schedule and balance home life? Which is one of the questions I asked Heber, because it really blows my mind. He has 2 kids, a wife, many companies, runs up.
I don't know how you do it, Heber.
Yep.
I don't know that I balance it. You'll have to ask my wife if it's balanced or not.
You always got to ask the wives.
There's my dudes. Yeah.
The
beautiful family.
Thanks, guys. I really try to like, when I'm home. Unfortunately, like, I just got home from the games, and then I had like Monday night to be with my family, and then I was like, okay, I got to edit all day Tuesday. And I literally woke up Tuesday morning, sat at my computer until about 3 a.m, and then slept, and then woke up, and I was like, I've got a little bit left yesterday, and I ended up editing until 7 p.m. But now, like, after this podcast, I've got the rest of the day to be just with my family for the next 2 or 3 days before I have to take off again. But really, like, it's very important to disconnect, put your phone away, be present. And then I also try to do things like you've just pulled up, like our Hawaii trip and our Florida trip, where, because I'm doing this really cool job and I'm traveling all the time, I'm trying to bring them with me at least once a quarter to build like a really strong memory with the kids, exploring the world and doing cool things. And so that's been cool. Like, I'm working really hard to have cool opportunities and trying really hard to incorporate my family in those where possible.
And the way you document it with your family is so cool, dude. It reminds me of like my childhood, because my parents always had like cameras and shit, and I was so thankful that I was able to go back and like I can go back and look at that stuff, because like the small details of like being like, even like little things, stupid things like this, like the way that Domino's pizza boxes used to look, and like who was there, and the stuff they used to wear, and it's like, it's so funny, and the shit you would say, and like on videos, and it's so funny, man. And it's cool to see you do it. I mean, and do it like, I mean, it's cool that you do it in like 4K and all this shit, but it's so cool to just watch you document things like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what got the Buttery Bros started. Was I was filming with Brent Fikowski, and I shot this Road to the Games video for a CrossFit, and he promoted the crap out of it. And I texted him, I said, hey man, thanks for thanks for pushing the show. It's very helpful and very cool of you. And he was like, no man, thanks for covering like a highlight of my life and showing what my world is like. And so that I have something in 20 years, 30 years, I can show my kids and my grandkids. And I was like, dope. I don't have that for myself, like,
yeah.
So like, remember to turn, like, all you guys remember to turn the camera on yourselves and show what your life is like, because you're going to want to see that in 30 years. Like, what we're doing is freaking awesome. It's cool. And you'll want to remember that when you're not doing it.
I think that's what we're so good at doing. If you notice, we're all taking pictures of each other. So I think we're all helping each other capture those moments. I think that's so awesome. Like Heber,
Yeah.
I didn't once turn my camera on myself when we went to Hawaii, and I have all those images that you took, and that's something that I'm proud of. And hell, I have that video that you took, and that's a memory right there. And I owe it all to you, that because I wouldn't have thought about doing that myself.
Yeah, I think it's super important.
That's a cool part about the stuff that we do. We just get to document other people's lives. We can do ours too. It just,
I don't know how
cool
you get
stuff.
so many, Carlos. I'm like, holy shit, you got everybody.
Dude, that's
You
my
look
shit
so
though.
damn good.
I love. Oh, you mean like pictures of me or pictures of other
No,
people?
you get a photo of everybody, and people
Yeah.
have a lot of you.
Yeah,
Dude,
people have a
I
lot of
love
pictures of
doing
you.
that. Between heats, I go around and like start taking photos of people. Like I love taking candid photos of people.
I know when someone
It's-
has a
it's
camera
so
pointed
cool.
at me, and
Oh
then
yeah,
I
you
can
can
just-
do it.
I'm
You
like,
flex. Now you flex.
Oh yeah. All right. We've been on for 2 hours, exactly
Oh.
2 hours. So I really appreciate everybody that is here right now and that was here. Eric, Patrick, Josi, Heaps, Alex. We had Ginnie, we had Carly, we had Bennett and the Mayhem Media team. We had a bunch of people. So I really appreciate you guys doing this. Every single one of you that are here, like I look up to all of you guys, and I really appreciate your friendship and everything that you do for the industry. And I think like having people like everybody that's listening and everybody that comments afterwards and sends DMs, that just helps us as creators to just keep going and keep producing stuff that they like and that we like to do. So I appreciate every single one of you and everybody listening. If anybody wants to say anything before we cut it, I'll give
Appreciate you, Carlos.
15 seconds.
Everything you do.
Thank you, Carlos, for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on, Carlos, and all you guys.
It's all of you guys.
Send your pictures to Katie@morningchocolate.com. We want to publish that stuff.
Yeah.
If you got any cool images, send them to Katie@morningchocolate.com.
I got one of you drinking a beer during an event.
I'm waiting for that one. It's a tradition. It's a tradition.
Awesome.
Literally.
And if you're listening to this episode right now and you have nothing to do for the next hour, go straight to YouTube and search Buttery Bros and watch the last video.
Yes.
I heard that a couple of us are there. So, yep, go ahead and watch it. That's exactly what I'm going to do after this. I took not the day off, but until like, I don't know, a couple more hours. I'm not going to do
get a lunch break.
Get a lunch break. All right, everybody, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. You guys
if
are
you
all
like
awesome.
if people are listening, if you like the episode, make sure you like it, subscribe to the channel, let us know, send us a DM, follow us on Instagram, whatever you want to do. But I appreciate everybody. All right, see you guys.
See you. Bye.
Till next time.
Bye.